Good morning and welcome to today's issue of Geek Speak. Today's topic will be the hidden secrets of iOS and how we can expose these with SolarWinds technologies. First off, a big howdy from the SolarWinds headquarters here in Austin, Texas. My name is Josh Stevens. I'm the head geek, monster blogger, and constant tweeter here at the office. Also happen to be the VP of Technology. We have a special guest today, Jimmy Ray Purser from Cisco Systems, who is a notable security extraordinaire, sort of a hacker guy, also co-host of Cisco TechWise TV. But Jimmy Ray, a.k.a. Speed Racer, was unavoidably detained by the man this morning and should be here in a few minutes, but is running a little bit late. Since Jimmy Ray was running a little bit late, I happened to snag Denny LeConte here in the hallway. Denny, thanks so much for stepping in and joining us.
Always glad to help out, Josh.
And today's topic will be the hidden secrets of iOS and some ways to expose those and make them really consumable by everyone. If you're not familiar with SolarWinds, a little bit about what we do and who we are. So we're a provider of network management, network monitoring software. We have over 80,000 customers, over 1 million users of our products. What's different about SolarWinds, we provide very easy-to-use applications you can download right from SolarWinds.com, try them out, have them up and running, collecting data and providing value in under an hour. And we really want it to be very easy for you to use on your own and to evaluate as a network engineer. Now, we're a bunch of network engineers ourselves, so we really strive to build tools that we'd want to use out there in the field. The pricing's all available on SolarWinds.com. There are really no secrets here, and our sales team is really here just to help make the buying process easier for you, the customer. We have many different types of products, from free tools like TFTP Server, IPSLA Monitor, which we'll talk about today, and the Real-Time NetFlow Analyzer. There are tens of thousands of engineers that use our engineers tool set, which is really the most comprehensive tool set out there for doing network management and engineering functions. And of course, our enterprise class fault and performance management application, Orion, and the modules or add-ons for that, which we'll also talk about today as they apply to these hidden secrets of iOS. So with today's agenda, of course, we did the introductions. We'll also we'll do some free stuff today. We'll kind of talk about some giveaways and etc. We'll talk about NetFlow, IPSLA, and EnergyWise as three really important technologies that are sort of hidden in Cisco iOS, but if you expose them, they offer a tremendous amount of value. We'll do a SolarWinds demonstration of our products and how they fit into those technologies, and then we'll have an extended Q&A session for all the questions that might come up out there. So, Denny, who doesn't like free stuff, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody who doesn't like free stuff.
Yeah, and the features we'll discuss today are really cool because they're free. They're included within Cisco iOS, which means they're already deployed on your network in the hardware that you've deployed, whether it's Cisco routers or switches, wherever this gear is, and your core site, in the remote sites, you've got this gear laying around in most cases, serving its purpose, routing packets, switching packets, it's doing its thing, but there's some cool features you can turn on to really add more value. Now, our free tools that we offer, are trusted by thousands of engineers worldwide, and they're very, very easy to leverage using our applications. So these technologies are not new, other than EnergyWise, but they're really robust in nature, and we'll talk about why you'd want to use them, and especially how cool it is that they're free. So let's talk about what types of problems we're solving. I mean, Denny, I know when you worked with our users in the community on Thwack, they talked about problems that they hear from their customers.
Yeah, they're all the ones that every network engineer hears every day. You've got some user who calls and tells you the internet is down, and it turns out not to be a worldwide disaster. It seems to be more related to that particular individual. To them, if they can't see it, then the whole internet is down. Things go down more often for network guys, right? It's people calling in saying something is slow. Yeah. My application is slow. The internet is slow. Please fix. They can't get email. They are trying to figure out why they can't. They send an email and it takes a long time to come or doesn't come at all. Or they want to download, right? People are always trying to pull stuff down, and they're for some reason it's failing, and they end up calling the service desk, and it gets to the network guy, and he's got to figure out why can't it transfer.
Yeah, and those user problems tend to translate into different types of problems for network engineers, right? I mean, whether it's spanning tree that's shutting down switch ports or MPLS VPN tunnels that just won't stay up, these types of issues can cause you some real problems. Even something as simple as your SNMP authentication failing, where your NMS can't tell that data anymore, that can create some real problems for you on the network. And I know I've certainly screwed up enough ACLs over the years and locked myself out of routers a few times where I actually had to get on an airplane and fly to the site to fix it. That, these are problems that may be self-induced, but they're real issues. And how do you troubleshoot these problems? What best practices and tools are available? Well, NetFlow is a really cool technology in that it's embedded in your existing hardware and software, meaning your router switches and SecretsOfIOS. And, I know you've worked a lot with our NetFlow products, and NetFlow really answers a couple of key questions, right?
Well, I mean, what people want to know is, you've had SNMP for a long time that can tell you how much bandwidth is being used, but that's really not very satisfying. If it's a lot, you want to know who is using that bandwidth and what are they doing? Are they doing something they're supposed to? Are they downloading files they ought not be downloading? Are they looking at over the internet video? What's going on, so that you can figure out, is your bandwidth inadequate, or are your users doing bad things?
Yeah, I mean, just this morning I was sitting at my desk watching the On a Boat video on Hulu.com, and I'm probably misusing the company's bandwidth, but man, that video was hilarious. I don't know if you've seen it or not, Denny.
I know you keep sending it to us, trying to get us to watch it.
It's a great one. But yeah, I mean, things like YouTube and Hulu and World of Warcraft, and even things like being able to see the difference in how your traffic's prioritized between email traffic and VoIP traffic are really key here. And so NetFlow helps you to really understand what traffic's flowing through the network, how it's marked or tagged in terms of TOS, what types of protocols and applications and how they're distributed. And the cool thing about this technology is it's available not only on Cisco, right? So Cisco obviously does NetFlow. A few other vendors have started doing NetFlow as well, including Riverbed and Adtran. Juniper has their brand, which is SFlow. Which is JFlow. And then, of course, the industry standard, which is kind of a weird term because NetFlow has become probably more of an industry standard, but the RFC-defined standard or generic flow is SFlow, which is done by HP and Brocade in their Foundry line and Extreme switches. And then, of course, there's the next generation, which is IP fixed, which is just really starting to emerge as a flavor of flexible NetFlow. So some basics of traffic flow technologies and sort of how they work, right? They basically keep track of the traffic flowing from place to place on the network. And traditionally, it's leveraged to monitor layer 3 or routed traffic flows, meaning you're looking at the traffic as it traverses a layer 3 hop. But some of the newer technology out there can actually do layer 2 traffic detail. And this is especially helpful and you have a large data center and a lot of your traffic is just layer 2, it's flat and switched. And more recently, with support for virtual switching technology like the Nexus 1000V with Cisco.
Right.
Because most guys aren't going to route that traffic, they're going to switch it. And so you're going to want to see the traffic details between these virtual servers within that switch, and NetFlow allows you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the Nexus is really cool because it's really the first time that a network engineer can get visibility into like a bunch of virtual machines running ESX. What's all that traffic that's going on inside the box? That's always been literally a
black
box.
hole, yeah. I mean, and before the Nexus, using the VMware virtual switch, sure, it's a good switch and it passes data fine, but it really is, like you said, a black hole.
It does the job, but it doesn't have the manageability, and that is definitely one of the things that Cisco's bringing to the table with the Nexus 1000V.
So, some commonalities of traffic flow types. So, first off, the transport protocol is almost always UDP. Now, some newer versions will optionally support TCP and SCTP, but generally speaking, you're going to see NetFlow as a UDP packet. And the UDP port numbers are generally configurable. Now, I've seen some devices that default to a 2055 and some default to I think it's like 9997 or something. Is that right, Denny?
I think so.
And so, it's configurable, but what this really means is as you're out deploying this technology, whatever port you define on your routers and switches to send NetFlow on, you need to configure your receiver on the same port, and you need to allow UDP traffic for that port through your firewalls and ACLs.
Yep. So
that's really a key there. And it's technology embedded within your router and switch software. And so You want to use, if you're using Cisco gear, check your iOS feature set to make sure it's included. The best place to do that is cisco.com/go/FN, Frank Nancy for Feature Navigator, and it shows you all the different features for each version of iOS you've got. And, in the old days, I saw situations where turning on NetFlow would slow down the device significantly. And that problem has been gone for a lot of years now. So it's really hardly noticeable on the hardware today.
You still occasionally hear customers asking about that, but it's one of those things where when they first heard of NetFlow years ago, they heard that, and it's, I would say now it's in the category of a myth.
Yeah, and part of the reason for that is a lot of the processing is now done actually in the chips on the cards and the routers. So it's not just something that has to pass through the main processor. It's easy to configure and enable on your network gear. There's usually only, on most Cisco devices, it's a 3-line command set. So 3 simple lines to turn it on. And some devices are configurable via SNMP and or a web interface. And we actually have released a free tool for this, right?
We have our little NetFlow configurator. And so if it's available by SNMP and the tool tells you, you can just tell us the IP address of the router. We go out and ping it, and then you tell us where you want to send it up to two destinations, and then we turn it on for you, and the flow starts flowing.
Awesome. Hey, we're already ready for our first trivia question. And remember, the first 5 correct answers will get a SolarWinds T-shirt. Now, Denny, you haven't seen the questions and answers yet, but you did see this movie. I went with you, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
And so we'll see how you do here. First question is, in the new Star Trek movie, who is Lieutenant Nyota Uhura romantically involved with? So don't expose the answer. This is a pretty easy one. They get harder as we go.
No, I was going to say you could have asked her first name.
Okay.
Which would have been a harder one.
And we already have our 5 correct answers. And she got romantically involved with Spock, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. I didn't suspect that. So let's go ahead and move on now. Now, IPSLA is the second technology we're going to talk about today. And, different than NetFlow, which is offered on most hardware equipment, depending upon, regardless of whether you use Cisco or Riverbed or Foundry or whatever, IPSLA is really pretty clearly a Cisco technology. And, it's good for us because most customers, while they may have, a diverse set of gear, they at least have some Cisco equipment, if not all.
Mm-hmm.
And so IPSLA, which sometimes is called SAA or RTT because it's had several different iterations over the years, it's actually been around since iOS version 11.2, which is a long time ago. But it's especially beneficial because of the perspective and what it tells you. And basically, this is technology that turns your routers and switches into sort of agents or probes on the network and allows you to delegate work to those guys so that they're actually going to run tests from wherever they are, distributed out throughout the network, and then store those results into a MIB table that you can either access via command line or preferably have an NMS that pulls it in and consolidates it like we do here at SolarWinds and makes it really, really easy and helpful. Some problems with traditional network monitoring. Let's just take Orion, for example, right? Whether it's Orion or OpenView or whatever you guys are using out there, you have an NMS sitting in the middle of the network and it's pulling outward, right? And regardless of your network topology, it sort of implies a hub and spoke style monitoring, meaning all of the monitoring is done from the perspective of this central NMS.
Right.
And it doesn't represent site-to-site performance very well, right? So if your headquarters is in Austin, maybe that's where your data center is, but you have sites in San Francisco and San Jose that talk to each other, polling those sites from Austin doesn't tell you much about site-to-site perspective. And even though they might imply a round-trip time, they really only tell you the round trip. They don't tell you each direction or each way on the round trip. Whereas today's networks are a little bit different, right? In the old hub and spoke days with frame relay, that might have been fine. But today, a lot of us deploy MPLS networks. We deploy fully meshed networks. Many of our sites have their own internet connections. They don't route that through the core. And so it changes our needs from a perspective base on understanding performance on the network. So why IPSLA? Well, first of all, it's a great technology for network troubleshooting and monitoring because perspective is ultra important here.
Well, you've got, the whole point of IPSLA is you don't really have to worry about a probe being where the traffic is being routed because it's built into the router. So it's automatically exactly where you need it to be.
Yeah.
And so you've got the test points wherever you've got a Cisco router built in the last umpteen years.
Yeah, and anyone who troubleshoots, network issues knows that, perspective is really the key. If someone calls me from our San Jose office and says, "Hey, Josh, we're having the network seems slow or whatever," the first thing I'm going to do probably is tell that to the router there and test from there, right? And this allows you to automate those perspective-based tests from each of those sites. And again, the cool thing is it's free technology, right? It's built into the Cisco routers and switches that you've already deployed,
Yeah,
so why not leverage it? There are several different types of operations. We'll kind of detail a few of these, but basically the idea here is to generate test traffic, whether it's UDP tests to give you jitter and latency from those sites, whether it's an HTTP test to make sure that websites are accessible and test performance from those sites, or
TCP Connect.
TCP Connect. So the idea is to make it as close as you can get to synthesizing user application performance from the router or switch at those sites. And again, it's existing infrastructure. This is technology you've already bought and paid for, you've already deployed. No need to deploy probes or agents. It's built into these Cisco devices, and it's very, very easy to configure and leverage. Now, the alternatives here are you could deploy, probes or agents, right? You could deploy physical appliances or probes out to your sites, but they're expensive. They consume more power and heating and cooling, and nobody wants to increase their carbon footprint these days.
Yeah, the total cost of ownership of a probe is it's big. It has a big hit on you the day you buy it, and then you have to maintain it, and all it's doing is, in a lot of cases, what your router already could do for you.
That's right, and I know you've had some experience working with companies that do software-based agents.
Yeah, agents are the sort of thing that people at best tolerate. I've never met a customer who is excited to hear that your software solution needs an agent, because again, it's going to take up resources on the box. It's going to have to be maintained and managed, and you have to deal with patches on the OS or iOS. I'm saying agents are a pain, and like your last point, they're not free.
No, they're absolutely not free. So, some requirements for using IPSLA. Most Cisco routers and switches support this technology. It's been around a long, long time. It's especially helpful in edge devices, in my opinion. Where you have, a WAN router in each of your, 1,000 sites. Maybe you're a retail store or something like that. Being able to test from each of those sites is important because the performance doesn't usually vary that greatly inside the site, right? You have a local gigabit connection from the router to the switch and to all your users, but going out from the site across the WAN, it's really key. Now, you do have to configure this either via CLI or via SNMP, and this is a little more complicated than NetFlow because configuring your IPSLA operations by hand can be pretty laborsome.
Absolutely, it can be done, and some people do it, but it's not just a matter of three lines in a CLI. You have to decide what you're going to do, how often you want to run those operations. It can be significant. It's definitely a place where a tool to do the configuration for you will help you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah, and that's one of the advantages of both the free IPSLA monitor at SolarWinds and the Orion module is that they make that all happen for you. They do all behind the scenes. You don't have to know the command line.
Yeah, when we were designing the tool, that was one of our considerations. We saw how much the two parts that were kind of challenging were the setting it up and the looking at the data, and we're like, well, yeah, people have this, but the reason we think they're not using it is because it's a little bit hard to manage, and that was part of the value we were trying to provide in the tool.
In all three of these technologies, while they're free, NetFlow, IPSLA, and EnergyWise, which we'll get to, part of what we do at SolarWinds is trying to make these technologies consumable by everyone. So we take the hard part out for you. We take the configuration away from you. We don't make you do that. You don't have to go to the command line and pull the data manually, but we try to make this really, really easy for you. With IPSLA, there are a couple of things to know. You can either view the statistics from the command line. You can log into the router and look at the result set. There are some free tools like the IPSLA monitor that will let you see the results sort of in real time. And then a product like Orion would allow you to see that data over time for trending and alerting and more long-term monitoring. So the third technology we wanted to discuss today is EnergyWise. And of these three technologies, EnergyWise is the newest. And it's really a framework for network-based power management. And what that means is it's a way for you to measure and control power of all the connected network devices, whether those are phones or access points or PCs or even building systems and physical security, from the perspective of the engineer at the Ethernet switch. And so it allows you to control and optimize power delivery with policies and embedded intelligence, which should help you realize a significant cost savings. Now, the end goal being to normalize data and normalize traffic, but for me, as an advocate for the network engineer community, there's another goal, which is to really raise the visibility of, the network engineer within their organization. Because this is a way for what you do as an engineer or network manager to turn from being just simply an expense, another necessary evil in IT to your CIO or your executive team, to being a team that can really save your company significant dollars in terms of energy consumption and can also help them with their image in terms of being a greener company. And this is something that is becoming more and more important, especially in Europe, in California here, in the federal space in the U.S. as well. And it's happening really across the board. And if you haven't yet been approached by your boss to find ways to save power in your data center, that day is coming. So why not go ahead and step up and provide them this up front?
Yeah, it's not going to go away. I mean, energy costs it's significant, and the more hardware you add, the more it's going to go up. And so Cisco's providing a way to, again, use what they've already got, equipment you already own, to try and start implementing some stuff.
And so a little bit about, energy-wise, it really takes tenant services technologies that are IP-based, like, high-speed internet, wireless, VPN technologies, and it combines them with building services that are non-IP, like lighting, elevators, 24/7 monitoring. And we're using the network as the platform. We're sort of now combining these efforts so that we can start to control more of this from the network. And, when you think about it, imagine a day where you could walk into the office, or maybe one of your users walks in and they scan their badge at the front door. And intelligently, the network knows, okay, Denny's at work now. Let's go ahead and light up all the light bulbs on the path to his office. Let's power up his phone, his VoIP phone. Let's go ahead and turn on his PC at his desk. Let's go ahead and make sure the AC is running in that part of the building and that the elevators are turned on. And we'll do all that dynamically. And then for the 1,000 salespeople you have that all go home at 6, at 6:30, shut down all their PoE ports, shut down the phones, shut down their computers, and save that power. Now, today, energy-wise, is really a technology that's leveraged primarily for PoE devices. But they're extending that very, very quickly through partner relationships so that it will actually cover, any device available in the data center.
Right. I mean, Cisco's got a long-term vision. They really just launched this earlier this year. So they're going for, let's get something that's pretty straightforward like PoE, but their vision is, multi-year. It's going to take a vendor the size and breadth of Cisco to kind of make something like this happen. So we're on board with Cisco on this really early, but it's a long-term adventure.
And so when you think about SolarWinds for Cisco energy-wise, first of all, Orion and the different products within the Orion family are the first products available and the only products now that fully support energy-wise, and from an enablement perspective and from a monitoring perspective. We'll actually show you that. But Orion NPM, really, the Orion you guys all know and love, can monitor Cisco energy-wise capable gear, can report your energy savings both in real time and over time. And remember, energy saved is money saved. It's really kind of one and the same. Whereas Orion NCM, the Network Configuration Manager, will inventory and enable the technology, and it will help you to automate the configuration and deployment tasks. Again, whether it's NetFlow, IPSLA, or energy-wise, part of our job at SolarWinds is not only to be able to monitor and provide details of these technologies, but also to help you enable them and make them more consumable to everyone. So, when it comes to SolarWinds, Orion, and EnergyWise, the combination of these two products, NPM and NCM, really allows you to reduce the energy consumption by managing the EnergyWise policies on your devices. It's a very easy-to-use interface. We'll actually walk through some of that here in a few minutes. You can report on the energy consumption and savings over your specific time periods, and of course, graphically now start to actually see how that changes over time. So we'll actually just demo this for you in a few minutes. There are a couple of key steps that we'll actually walk through in the product, but obviously if you were going to start deploying technology like EnergyWise, you would start with running a report to find out, well, where could you enable it? What devices do you have that are capable, that are ready to be turned on? And then, pushing an iOS update maybe to some of your devices to make them iOS capable.
Right.
And then next thing you would do is simply use Orion NCM to push out the policies and configure the devices for the EnergyWise policies and savings, and then simply report on it. Sit back and watch as Orion reports on how much money and energy you're saving.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and deploy EnergyWise without using Orion, or it's possible, but I can tell you, you're going to have to go to the command line, and you're going to have to issue the policies, or kind of like cron statements, saying go and turn this on at this time, and they're long, kind of cumbersome strings. And when we started talking to Cisco about this, that was one of the things. Like, it's doable, but it's not going to be fun. Whereas with our configuration management tool, it's a nice web-based GUI. You can select a whole bunch of devices and interfaces and say, go and apply this policy to these 20 switches all at the same time. And then the monitoring, yeah, I mean, the data's there, but it's in a MIB unless you want to go and do a bunch of custom work. The advantage that NPM's giving you is that it's right next to the networking data you already have.
And before I forget, so we're sort of skimming the top of these three technologies since we only have an hour and we want to leave time for Q&A. But at solarwinds.com/geek, there are hour-long recorded webcasts that do deep dives on these technologies. So if you want to learn a lot more about NetFlow or flow technologies in general, a lot more about IPSLA, for example, go out to solarwinds.com/geek. There are recorded webcasts that deep dive in those technologies. We get a lot of questions about this. So if you have a yearning to learn a lot more, go watch the other webcasts and TED Talks. But, I would say, for me, the easiest way to learn about technology is to use them. So go out and download an eval copy for free of Orion and the VoIP module, which does IPSLA, the NetFlow module for NetFlow, and Orion natively does the EnergyWise stuff. And try it out. Turn it on in your lab, turn it on a few of your devices, and you'll be amazed at the detail you can see.
Yeah, our evals are fully functional. We don't kind of disable anything. You can do whatever. You've got 30 days, and just go in your lab and go hog wild.
So here is Star Trek trivia question number 2. This is the second question. And again, we will identify the winners at the end. The first 5 correct answers will get a SolarWinds free T-shirt. And the question, in the new Star Trek movie, who was Lieutenant Uhura's roommate while at the Starfleet Academy?
Wow, her name?
Her name.
Dude.
And I told you the next one would be harder. The first one was sort of a gimme.
You're not
and
kidding.
So I was trying
harder.
to warm people up a little bit. I think she was only in 1 or 2 scenes in the movie, but they did say her name, so I thought I'd go ahead and quiz everyone on that.
People are frantically Googling
frantically Googling right now. So I'm waiting for to find out if we have 5 correct answers or not. And anybody out there who hasn't seen the new Star Trek movie, it was great. And we have 5 correct answers. Now, I will say before I move on, we did a channel webcast yesterday for our resellers. And our channel manager was in, and he kept getting confused between Star Trek and Star Wars, which he lost a whole slew of cool points in my mind at that point. So seriously, dude, I don't know what to say. No, it was Mark.
Mark.
But I'm trying to give the guy some slack. But Mark, if you're listening, we are making fun of you a little bit on this webcast.
Wow, I'm really disappointed.
Now the answer was she's an Orion candidate named Adelia. And, part of the reason I included this is since she's an Orion candidate, I thought it was especially pertinent to this conversation, kind of a pun there, play on words. But that was her name, and we have the correct.
Yeah, if you're trying to remember her from the movie, she was the one with the green skin.
That's right. And she was in the scene in her room there with the main dude. So, anyways, let's go ahead and break away now and do a quick demo of the software we've talked about. Okay, great. Now, what we have in front of us at this point is the Orion Network Performance Monitor, which is sort of our flagship product. It is a fault and performance management application. And, when you look at Orion, there are a couple of key things to notice. The first thing in the all nodes list to notice is whether it's Cisco gear or Aruba wireless gear or, Extreme or Foundry, Brigade Now or HP, whether it's Linux servers or Windows servers or Solaris servers, we monitor all that stuff right out of the box without you needing to do anything special, just right out of the box in Orion. We also provide these topology-based maps that make it really easy, whether you do it as a troubleshooting step from your desk or whether you throw this up on a projector in your NOC, to see from a map status where you have issues and then drill down on those maps to see specifically what devices are actually in error state, and then drill down even farther to the specific devices that are having problems. And so that's part of what you see in Orion, is the ability to create these really great and dynamic maps that then show you status. And when you see a problem, you just select it and then drill down from there to see the details of that specific device. And so, when I think about Orion and when I do demos for customers, I only didn't hit a couple of these pages right now because we're short on time, but the top 10 lists are probably my favorite view in Orion. Didn't you use this a lot as well? Or?
Yeah, I mean, top 10, it's all, network management 101 is you do management by exception. So you want to see where your problems are. In the top 10, it's really the top 10 worst things on your network.
Yeah, right. And it's worst by response time or packet loss, by interfaces in terms of percent utilization or traffic, where you have servers that have, high CPU load or switches with lots of errors and discards. It's a really easy way to get a snapshot of the entire network by many, many different categories, and even categories like MOSScore for voice over IP connections, which we gather via IPSLA, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, when you think about Orion and all the things you could do, and I'm gonna go pretty quickly here, I want to have time for Q&A. But as we mentioned, in a SNMP based product, you see on an interface how utilized it is, right? You can see, for instance, that on this link here, let me just go ahead and go back and click on the interface itself, that this thing is 20% utilized right now, and I can see over time we've averaged on the outbound side, looks like around 20 megabits per second. On the inbound side, about 7. But that's all I know, right? I know how busy it is, how full the pipe is, but I don't know what or who or how or why. And what NetFlow really tells you is the who, how, why, what. Who's using the bandwidth, and what are they doing with it? And so you can analyze it now by protocol, by the endpoints, by where they're going in terms of domains, which applications, and it makes it really, really easy to see and diagnose who is using this bandwidth and what they're doing with it. And again, it's great technology that's included with your Cisco iOS, that's included on the devices you've already deployed in the network and you want to turn it on. Now, when I deal with customers that, let me close a few of these browser windows here. When I deal with customers that have just turned NetFlow on for the first time, it's always amazing, right? I was on the phone with a customer the other day, and he had Orion already. He installed the NetFlow add-on. Took him about 5 minutes to run through the wizard there. And boom, he's collecting data, right? And all of a sudden, he's seeing World of Warcraft. He's seeing this streaming audio. He's seeing all these, he's seeing a guy that's on Monster.com looking for another job. And he's like, oh, I told those guys not to be doing that, and he thought he'd deprioritize the traffic, but he didn't. And having this visibility is really a key part of managing your network, especially with the cost of bandwidth these days. And I'm not a big fan of, blocking user traffic to Hulu or YouTube or whatever, but at a minimum, deprioritize it, right?
Yep.
And so NetFlow allows you to do those things. So that's the first technology we discussed. Now, when it comes to IPSLA, there are many ways to leverage that. You can actually set up IPSLA using our free tool, the IPSLA monitor, and then you can pull it in with a universal device poller, which is sort of a custom polling engine built into the base Orion product.
Yeah, it can go fetch any MIBs
available.
That's available.
But if you want a richer interface, and if you want to automate the configuration and setup even more so, then the VoIP module, the Voice over IP module, which also does, of course, Voice over IP management for Cisco infrastructure, like the Cisco call managers. But the key thing here is it does IPSLA metrics for each of these sites. So if I want to drill down on a path between Ottawa and Austin, now I label it a VoIP path. This is just a network path. And what we're able to show you now is from the perspective of the router in Ottawa, what is the performance for packet loss, for mean opinion store, for latency and jitter from that site to Austin. And if I see a problem, I can actually drill down now on the charts and graphs. I can even reverse the path if I want to see how it's going the other way. So this is really just powerful information to have. If someone calls you from Ottawa and says, hey, I'm having a problem, I can actually see what the performance is like there. And so that's the voice over IP module, which is, again, is a second add-on to Orion. But now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about EnergyWise. Now, EnergyWise technology, you'll really want to have Orion NPM and NCM to be able to leverage it fully, because NCM does the audit and configuration and iOS pushes, and then NPM does the reporting. But as we mentioned, if I were going to go deploy this new technology, the first thing I'd want to do is run a readiness report. And what this tells me is which devices I have in the network that are fully EnergyWise ready and capable, which devices could support EnergyWise, all they need is an iOS update, and then which devices I have that don't support EnergyWise, whether those are non-Cisco gear or Cisco gear that they haven't adopted technology yet. Once I've done that, then what I'd actually want to do is go in and manage the devices and automatically push out the new configurations for it. And so I don't have the manage option here in front of me now. I thought I actually had that available. Let's see if I can show you guys that real quick. This is part of the network configuration manager, and I'm using a few different lab boxes here. So if I just choose manage nodes from my list here, I can then go and select the ones that are EnergyWise capable, select those devices, and simply choose Manage EnergyWise. Now, at that point, it's going to ask me if I want to configure policies on the individual ports or on the entire switch or across the enterprise, and it will dynamically configure that for me across the network with just a few clicks. Now, once I've done that, I can then start to use NPM to see what my overall and historical power consumption has been in terms of what I'm saving and what I was using before and how that's changed, both on a network-wide level and also on my EnergyWise devices all the way down. Now, once I drill down to an EnergyWise capable device where I've turned on this technology, I can see, of course, the regular things I see in NPM, CPU load and memory and packet loss and traffic rates. I can also, though, see how each port is configured in terms of the EnergyWise policy, and I can even drill down on those ports if I want to and see specifically what times of day and days a week it's scheduled to be on based upon the settings within EnergyWise or the policy. Makes it very, very easy. There are also functions in the product to be able to override the policy in case you want to turn on a port at an off hour or things like that. But it's great, great technology that allows you as a network engineer to start saving significant amount of energy across the network and, of course, saving your company money, which is something we're all interested in. And so that's the EnergyWise component, both in Orion, NPM, and NCM. Now, of course, if you want to see more about this, as I mentioned, there are webcasts and tech talks on all these technologies at SolarWinds.com. And again, the easy way to do it is download the evals and give it a try for yourself. So let's go ahead and identify the winners now real quickly. The winners are Doug T., Jeff N., Bill B., Jim M., N. Zuli, Laramie C., Michael F., Mark T., Phil R., and Larry C. You 10 folks are the winners today. Just email us your shirt size. We'll get that out to you ASAP here. Well, before we jump on to the Q&A, thank you very much for attending today. I had a lot of fun with this. There's a lot of questions, so we'll get right to that. Remember, you can always download a free trial of our software at SolarWinds.com. For more information, you can always visit me via email, headgeek@solarwinds.com. Follow me on Twitter at SW_headgeek, and visit my GeekSpeak blog. And last but not least, don't forget to renew your maintenance. Software maintenance is one of the great deals we offer here at SolarWinds, where you can get free access to all of our updates. And, Denny, as our lead product manager extraordinaire here, can tell you we do a bunch of product updates every year.
Oh yeah, everything gets released 2-3 times a year, and chock full of new features. We know people they pay maintenance for support, and we certainly do provide that. But what they want is the product to keep getting better, and that's what my team is doing. We're constantly adding new features to the products.
So let's now get to the Q&A. I know we have lots of questions here. The first question from Ron is, how much bandwidth does NetFlow take, and how do you calculate it? So, the bandwidth that you'll actually consume with the NetFlow traffic itself is trivial. It's really, really minuscule. There are calculators out there online. You can go search or Google them, and there's even one at cisco.com/go/netflow. But really, it's tiny. And of course, you can also report on that through Orion. So if you're sending NetFlow from a device out on the network, then whatever the next top device is will see that on that UDP port as one of the applications. So you can just monitor it that way. But it's really not typically a concern. Let's see here. So your question from Sean is, he said that a 3750 with the enhanced iOS image doesn't appear to be able to do NetFlow. Is that coming, or are we just stuck? I believe that 3750s don't support NetFlow. You'll have to go to cisco.com/go/netflow to verify that, but off the top of my head, I can't remember, to be honest. And I can't really comment as to whether they're going to be adding that or not down the road. But I don't remember, to be honest. So you want to check Cisco's website.
They've got so many devices, so it's one of those things. You go look at their site, and they do provide a lot of information.
Let's see here. Scroll down through all the answers to our trivia questions. Do all of our free tools, i.e. NetFlow and IPSLA, now support SNMP version 3? And I don't know off the top of my head. Denny, can you?
I think most of them do. I mean, anything we've built in the last few years definitely does.
Yeah.
There might be a couple of the really
old ones.
But we even updated TFTP. So I'm pretty sure. Yes, but I probably wouldn't swear to it because we have a lot of free tools.
But to answer the question on these free tools, so with the NetFlow tool, you don't really need any SNMP.
No, it doesn't.
Right? Because it's just listening.
Yep.
It does do a query to discover the interfaces, I believe, but that supports both levels of SNMP. And the IPSLA tool definitely supports SNMP version 3, which you'd want to use because it's doing a read-write action.
And the EnergyWise supports SNMP v3.
Good question from Amari. Would you describe NetFlow as being a protocol, a service, or a feature? Personally, I would define NetFlow as being an application. It's an application that's running on the Cisco router. Now, it is also a protocol, service, and a feature, right?
Yeah,
it's a feature of Cisco iOS.
Can't it be all of those?
It runs as a service. There's a protocol that it sends it on. But when you think about it, the protocol is going to be UDP. And it's going to be on a specific port number, just like any other application. So you can look at it in many ways. Actually, I wrote a new blog entry last night. You guys should check it out on thwack.com. But one of the things that companies are starting to do right now, Cisco being a leader in this space, is they're starting to use NetFlow as a transport protocol for other types of information besides traffic analysis. And so, for instance, on the Cisco ASAs, they now support NetFlow, but not for traffic analysis, only as a transport mechanism for security events. So you really want to think about NetFlow as less of a protocol and more of a feature or an application that can be used to transport many different types of data. And before I jump to the next question, I just want to real quickly just jump over here and show you, because I had a few questions about the WAC, and I realized when I talked about that, maybe it's the Arkansas in me, but it's sometimes hard to understand. So thwack.com is actually thwack.com. And this is our social media online community for network engineers, network managers, system administrators, any geek like us that's out there doing, IT tasks. And it's a great place to share information, to collaborate. It's a great place where over 20,000 active members congregate to share best practices and to help each other solve problems. Denny is very, very active in our forums for all of our products, as well as the entire product team here and our development team. There are forums for both our products, like Orion and NetFlow and IPSLA, and for specific technologies. So there are generic NetFlow forums as well, just talking about technology as a whole. I was working with a customer the other day, and we weren't using our NetFlow receiver, but we were trying to get layer 2 NetFlow data from some switches, and we ended up blogging about it and writing in the forums. But it's a great place to share information. There's also a content exchange zone. Denny, you want to tell us what that does?
Well, for a lot of our products, what we have tried to do is when users have to create anything custom, like you tweak a report or you create a universal device puller to maybe go measure something like fan speed or humidity that's very specific to a device, you can now share that information on Thwack, and so if one person has done the work, you can go do a quick search and then pull that down. And the direction we're actually going is getting that where we're pulling it stuff directly into the product. So like in our next version of our application monitor product, we're going to be able to show you all of the content that everybody else has created and posted to Thwack without ever leaving the product.
There are also some great free downloads out here that we all recommend and use. And of course, my blog, Geek, and here's the blog entry I mentioned, which is kind of explaining the difference between using NetFlow as a traffic analysis application versus as a transport protocol. So you can go check all that. And if I didn't mention it, membership at thwack.com is free. You don't even have to be a customer. So anyone can join. A great place to get information. And let's get back to the Q&A here. We're about to run out of time. Let's see here. Some of these are very specific to. If you're asking a question that's really specific to your environment, I'll try to answer all those via email. I'm trying to find some here that are a little more broad. Okay, well, this is very, very relevant to what we just talked about from David. He asks, are there instructions on setting up NetFlow with the Cisco ASA using 8.2.1 iOS for the free NetFlow monitor? And, I verified this yesterday with a friend of mine who is a Cisco PM over NetFlow, and with the ASAs, they don't support NetFlow for traffic analysis, only as a transport protocol or mechanism for security events. So if you're trying to analyze traffic on the ASA, which you are, you'll want to analyze the NetFlow data on the adjacent device, either the router or switch, before or after the firewall. That's the way you have to do it. Robinson asked, so if EnergyWise is a free application, first of all, is it free, and is there a manual or something that would tell you how to download it and use it? So EnergyWise is a feature embedded in Cisco iOS. So you'll need to get the latest version of iOS for your devices. Today it's supported on the Catalyst switch line, the 2K, 3K, and 4K switches. They're adding that support to other devices down the road very quickly, as a matter of fact. But it's not a separate application you download. It's a feature embedded in iOS. Then, once you've done that, you want to use Orion NPM and NCM, those applications, to actually configure enable, and monitor the usage you're getting and the savings you're getting on power. And there's some videos out on SolarWinds.com that explain how to do that. And of course, we document it in our manuals and Cisco website as well. Another question from Lee, just to verify, the EnergyWise portion of Orion is not a separately licensed module; it's built in. So now it will depend, of course. Orion NPM does the monitoring and NCM does the configuration, but it's not a module like NetFlow or VoIP. It's just included. A lot of people just answered the green chick for the roommate's name. That's pretty cool. I didn't see that till just now. Let's see if I have time for a couple more questions. What time is it? Yeah, we do. Question from Michael, is the NetFlow add-on a paid add-on to Orion? And yes, it is. So the NetFlow module is a paid add-on to Orion, and it's priced based upon which of the Orion versions you have, whether you have the SL250 or the SLX. And it's a paid add-on, but it's certainly well worth the cost in terms of what you can see in terms of visibility in your network. Question from one gentleman here is, does Orion have support for client-based application connection to the server instead of web-based? So it depends on which application you're talking about. Orion being a very robust management tool. There are many applications, whether it's the web UI or the universal device polar. I will tell you, and Denny, correct me if I'm wrong, the latest version of Orion includes the new Network Atlas, which is a mapping utility. Mm-hmm. And the most common thing people want to do from their desk that's not web-based is create and edit maps. And I believe the new one lets you actually do that from your desk with a client-based application, right?
Yeah, in fact, anybody with appropriate permissions on Orion will see a little link on a map that says download Network Atlas. You install it on your desktop, and then you can point it at the server and do whatever you need to do from there.
Awesome. So Brett asked, he said, I mentioned the ability to deprioritize NetFlow traffic, and he said, how is that accomplished? Well, what I actually meant there was you can use NetFlow data to figure out which traffic you want to deprioritize. Now, it's certainly possible within your QoS settings on your routers and switches that you could deprioritize your NetFlow traffic. Generally speaking, when I deploy QoS, My top priority goes to system level updates. So these are routing updates, any system level messages between my networking infrastructure. My second priority will go to latency insensitive or packet loss intolerant apps like voice and video, and then I prioritize everything else somewhere below that. You could deprioritize the NetFlow traffic, but I haven't seen that done very often. So good question from Rich regarding EnergyWise. What happens if a user works late or on a weekend? How easy is it to make a change for the EnergyWise configuration?
Well, within Orion, there's an override button, so you could easily go to the target interface and just do an override and say give it full power.
Yeah, very, very easy to do. We thought about that use case because I can imagine getting a call from home and some dude can't get his phone to work, working on the weekend. So here's a good question from Jeff. If you're using the NetFlow product, can you tell me what type of traffic is passing through on port 3389? So, whether you're using remote desktop with terminal server or even Citrix, if you have users that are logging into a server and then they're browsing from there or running apps from there, but the NetFlow traffic, as we see it, is all 3389. No, you can't analyze that because the traffic you're analyzing is 3389 traffic. Now, in the event that the traffic from that server then leaves and goes through a NetFlow source, you can analyze it, but you won't be able to tell which of those users it was because they're all the same IP address via Citrix or RDP.
Yep.
And so, one of the things people are doing nowadays is deploying VMs instead and tracking it that way. But that is a problem that that definitely a lot of customers see, and there's not really a good solution for it right now. Let me just answer one more question here. We are quickly running out of time.
I did see one. It says, does SolarWinds offer a product that monitors services on a server? And we do. Our application performance monitor product will monitor services, processes. On Windows, it'll do WMI performance counters. It can run scripts. Log into a Linux server with SSH and collect data. So it's a full service application monitoring product. Not every network guy needs application monitoring, but we know that a lot of you really maybe own monitoring, not just for the network, but monitoring for everything on the network, and that includes apps, which is one of the reasons that a network monitoring company built that.
And Jim actually just sent me an update from the chat session, and he said you can set up unique IPs per user in Citrix.
Oh, really?
So if you do that, then you would be able to report on the data via NetFlow, assuming that you're monitoring not the in-path Citrix traffic, but from the Citrix server outward. So, we're completely out of time here. There's a lot more questions we didn't get to. I will try to answer all those over the next week via email. Of course, you can always ping me at headgeek@solarwinds.com, follow me on Twitter, or catch the blog. Denny, thanks so much for attending. I really appreciate it, especially on such short notice.
Oh, glad to do it. Always fun to talk to our customers.
And Jimmy Ray, a.k.a. Speed Racer, is still out there somewhere. I wish the guy luck today. And, we'll catch all you guys later. There will be a recorded version of this webcast posted to solarwinds.com/geek. Check out there for more updates, and have a safe and happy weekend.